middleweight banger coming up this weekend. God, no, Quebec, Canada's own Powerbar, Marc-Andre Barriault. He was the former 2-division TKO champ. He beat a guy from our hometown to punch his ticket to the UFC. Barriault now taking on Roll Tide. Eryk Anders, ya boy. He had one of those strip fumbles, because it wasn't really a strip sack, in the national championship game in 2009.
Take a shot every time they show that on the broadcast, and you'll be dead by the end of the fight.
Now, I have to throw out a giant disclaimer to start this video off. I was in a music video with Eryk Anders. That really happened in the world. And listen, it was a Mummy Cats music video for the song Wolverine. I love the song. Go check it out. Those guys over there like Fight Night Picks, and we like them. But Eryk Anders and I were in that. But when it does come down to this matchup,
he's a Cobra Kai, too.
I really do mean that it's a middleweight banger, and I am jacked the F up for this fight. Because for Marc-Andre Barriault, does he win first rounds? Not often. He usually gives up a lot of distance
rally, though,
and struggles his way in them. But yeah, he can rally. You look at his fight against Abu Zaitsar. You look at his fight against Oscar Piata. And that was a weird fight because that's the lone no contest on Barriault's record. Tested positive for Osterin, but if you go look at it with USADA, no, you go look at it with USADA. And they said that is consistent with low-level Osterin cases with evidence of contamination. So it wasn't really his fault. But if you do consider it for Barriault, yes, he has had a rocky road. He lost his first 3 fights in the UFC before that fight against Piata. But it's been more wins than losses since then. And if you consider the losses, one to Chidi Njokuani, where he gets finished really early on. Then a couple months later, he takes a fight against Jordan Wright and wins it. And then he lost to Fluffy Hernandez in a fight that I never thought Barriault could get out-wrestled like that, but it did happen. So for Barriault, his last time out, he fights Julian Marquez. And did he rally in that fight?
He did.
Yeah, he lost the first round, and then he came out winging it in the second. Anders is one of those guys, LFA champ, beats Brendan Allen, wins 2 fights in a row with the UFC, and then all of a sudden, 2 fights into a UFC career, you're fighting in Brazil against the legend in a main event in Lyoto Machida. A chintzy split decision loss in that one. It's gone up and down for Anders.
Then he fought Thiago Santos, and that was tough to watch.
Anders is 7-7 in the UFC, but if you consider it for both of these guys, so many finish wins, and that's what makes this fight a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, but I hate to play devil's advocate a bit. I think there's a world where this fight isn't great.
Nope.
This is why I say that. Eryk Anders sometimes can be on the back foot and try to level up that big left hand a little bit too much. We saw that in the Elias Theodoro fight. We have seen it throughout a lot of Anders' career. That left hand is a big weapon when he is able to land it, but he is a guy who won't necessarily throw a ton in terms of jabs. He will square himself up a little bit too much in search for that left hand. Now, what I will say is Barriault and his move forward style should initiate a lot of the engagements between these two, and that's what I'm hoping for, and if that's the fight we do get, it should be an extremely entertaining fight. But if Barriault does find himself a little bit hesitant in that first round, trying to work his wrestling into the match, because that's what people do forget about Eryk Anders. I know he's not a black belt in terms of jiu-jitsu.
2023 first place at the IBJJF Pan Brown Belt Championships.
Thank you. This has been my long point about Eryk Anders, and I do bring it up in a lot of our videos. We don't always see the jiu-jitsu, but we're told about the jiu-jitsu a lot. When he does have good takedown defense. He's an extremely strong athlete. I know you're going to...
Roll Tide.
If they show Nick Saban, yeah, that's his name, right? If they show him one more time, I swear to God. But that guy did terrible things for the Dolphins. But for Eryk Anders, that athleticism does really help him in the UFC. And I know it does sound like a bit of a cop-out, right? Him being good at football helps him in MMA, but it is true. Like, Eryk Anders has ridiculous physical strength. My curiosity in this matchup comes down to, can Barriault use his pressure and his cardio to really force Eryk Anders to fight? Because Anders, if he's kept at his own pace, does not have bad cardio at all. He will stand on the back foot, he will try to measure that big power shot, and he can last a strong 3 rounds. But I think Barriault can outpace him in this matchup if he does try to really go out there, put the wrestling shoes on, make it a grindy kind of a fight in that clinch. And that's why I have a hard time with this matchup, because it's not easy to take Eryk Anders down, but I do think that's Barriault's best chance to win this fight.
Again, with Barriault, the Piata fight, the fight that I already had mentioned where his last time out, Julian Marquez, the fight that he had against Zaitsar, even the fight that he had against Dalche Lungiambula, and that's kind of my comp for this one. Dalche, does he fight behind a jab? No. Does he throw an overhand right? Yeah. And does he occasionally use his wrestling? Sometimes. And he tried to go for single and doubles against Barriault. Successful in the first round, won the first round. And then Barriault was able to carry it forward through the fight. But with Eryk Anders, you look at a guy like Barriault coming forward at you, representing Killcliff with some of the bigger, better guys in the world of MMA. A lot of Bellator guys over there, like the Steve Mowrys and the Linton Vassels of the world. But if you look at it for Anders, you got a 2 and a 3, just like that Strickland combo. Barriault is going to fight with a straight right right, and then he fights with a big left hook, and he closes distance, crashes forward, gets you up behind the black line, and then he unleashes in that clinch. And you saw that against the War Master, or not the War Hammer. The War Master's Josh Barnett, who's on I Think You Should Leave season 3. The War Hammer's Adam Hunter for Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And in that one, Barriault did really good work, and then on the ground, he did all of his work. So I'll be eager to see what we get out of a guy like Anders, because in some respects, the takedowns carry him to wins. In other respects, he gets pieced up by Jun Young Park and goes 3 of 24 in takedown attempts and loses a split decision. So again, it will be chintzy to see. For Anders, he's 0-1 against Canadians, and if I make it a stretch further, he's 1-1 with a no contest against members of the Commonwealth. Those Darren Stewart fights, Matt. If we're making that stretch, you look at this one, Barriault is slightly favored to get the win. We have a look at the Topology vote. Surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over, under, I think it's going to be close. 65% Powerbar.
I'll say over.
You're going to say over? It's over. 845 total votes. 76% of Barriault to get the win. 65% by decision for the 24% that have Anders. 49% by decision. 42% by knockout. Who do you have in the matchup?
I like the activity out of Powerbar in this fight, and I do think his pressure is going to help him avoid some of those bigger shots of a guy like Eryk Anders, because Anders does require a decent amount of space for him to land that big left hand and some of his more dynamic power strikes, and I just don't think that space is going to be there for a lot of this matchup. So if Anders is able to create some kind of in-close power shots, maybe he is able to land some decent ones, because it's not like Barriault's never been hurt or wobbled. Like, we have definitely seen it before. So I do like the overall work rate and activity from Powerbar, though, but this should be a really entertaining fight if we get that version of him.
If Chris Dawkins did fight Khalil Roundtree on this card, it'd be really awkward because Eryk Anders sent Kyle out of the UFC, and it was hard to see. So that was a really good win for Anders, and for Barriault, I will go with him ever so slightly in the matchup. Before I went back and I watched the tape and I did my deep dive, I was going to go with Eryk Anders, but I do like the lasting ability of a guy like Barriault. The only thing that really worries me in this one is the way that he looked against Hernandez, who looked great against Shabazz.
I think Hernandez is a decent fighter, though.
So both of us in the matchup going with Gatineau, Quebec, Canada's own Marc-Andre Barriault to get the win. People hate it when I French it up. It should be a big-time matchup on this card, headlined by Nunes taking on Irene Aldana. It's a great card. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.